Hello, I'm Kimberly Williams, and I'm a third grade teacher at Valley Center Elementary in the Valley Center Palma Unified School District. This is my Year 2 CTI Inquiry Project. My inquiry question was, what instructional strategies can I implement during language arts to improve my students' map reading scores? This ties in directly to the CAFE portion of Daily 5, accessing comprehension, accuracy, fluency, and expanding vocabulary. The state standards that directly address this inquiry question were all literacy-based, R1, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.10, focusing in on asking and answering questions, main idea, as well as nonfiction texts. The rationale I had for choosing this inquiry project was being that I'm the English-only component of a dual language program. Many of my students' primary language is Spanish, and I really wanted to focus on their reading in English because I feel that it's the most critical, especially for third grade. I really tried to take into account engaging all learners, and the CSTP standards I focused on here was 1.6, monitoring and adjusting instruction while teaching, as well as using assessment data to establish learning goals and to plan, differentiate, and modify instruction as well. The research I conducted for this inquiry was my half-day CTI classroom observations on and off campus, my weekly meetings with my support provider, which really assisted me with the production of this inquiry project, the book Every Child a Super Reader by Pam Allen and Ernest Morrell, and the intensive intervention research directly from Read Naturally. One component of this process includes passages through Read Naturally. The Read Naturally program develops fluency, supports vocabulary development, and promotes comprehension using the research-based strategies of teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring. Another component is word warm-ups, which is a different component also through Read Naturally. This reading program features systematic phonics instruction that teaches students to decode and encode 1, 2, and 3-syllable words easily. The last component of this process is sight word practice, which is done through a sight word app directly on the student iPads. My first artifact is a sample of the phonics screener that was used to determine the placement for each student. Once the student misses 3 words in a category, they will be placed at that level. There is, of course, always the capability of modifying for discrepancy. Here is an example of a reading passage. This student is currently at a reading level of 1.5. First, you go over the keywords with the student and have a conversation about them. The student predicts what they are going to read about, and then you do a cold read with them. You time them for 1 minute and mark the passage as they read. You then read the passage to them and go over any words they missed. They practice their passage each day during Daily 5 and answer the comprehension questions during the week. The student continues to practice, and then you will take a hot score from them, likely at the end of the week. Each time the student starts a new reading passage, they chart their growth and progress. Here, you can see the cold score of the student in purple, and the red shows the hot score. It's put in the same column so that you can see the growth. The next artifact shows the word warm-ups. The student is exposed to these different words within the phonics rule being presented. They again start with a cold read, they practice, and then they do a hot read when they're ready or by the end of the week. Once they have mastered the skill, they can move on to the next. They chart their progress with these as well. Here's a little video of one of my students practicing her word warm-ups.
Gun, dog, fun, puff, puff, run, nub, huff, knock, sun, bun, run, nun, rub, tub, cup, hub, dub, nub, hum, gum, bums, rums, some, mum.
Lastly, I have the student practice their sight words. They start at the lowest level on the app, and they read all the words to the teacher. If they get them right, they move on to a new list for next time. If they don't, they flag any words they miss, and they practice it with the leveled words until the next run-through. You can see here, they just log in. The main screen here shows the different levels of words. They click on it, and then it shows the words just as flashcards. If they are not sure how a word sounds, they click that button right there at the top, and it says the word for them, so they can hear it auditorily. When it comes to communication and collaboration, the students and teachers communicate and collaborate their goals, student progress, as well as the content and comprehension of the content. The creativity portion is mostly concentrated during the Daily 5, where students have freedom of choice when it comes to the books they are reading and the activities they are completing. This part of the cafe is not as creative as it is more of an intensive intervention for students. Critical thinking skills are used throughout this as the students focus on balanced literacy. Differentiated instruction is a teaching practice based upon the notion that different learning needs require varied and adapted instruction. This is true not only for struggling learners, but for those who are making normal progress and/or excelling as well. With this process, the students complete each of the steps at their own level to help them establish their foundational reading skills and build from the bottom up. Even my students who are reading at a 5th or 6th grade level complete work on these, but at their own level. The focus with this inquiry is to maximize each student's growth and individual success by meeting each student where he or she is and assisting them in the learning process. The assessment I focused on was the MAP test, which stands for Measures of Academic Progress. I chose this as my focus because it is a huge focus within our district currently. I was looking to see growth from winter to spring at 3 points in reading, which is shown as average. The test is given online via iPads and adjusts to their academic ability as they take it. Here are 2 charts that show my students' MAP scores in winter and then again in spring. If you see the scores here for winter, you can see what they scored in spring here. So here's the winter and here's the spring. 16 out of 22 of my students showed growth from winter to spring. The average score for my class in winter was 180, and the average score for my class in spring was 185, with an average growth of 5 points per student. So here you see student 1 is at 150, and then here in winter they're at 158. So it just shows each individual student. Here's the data on my focus students. The blue column shows their personal score. My choice student score went up by 11 points. My IEP student score went up by 2 points, and my EL student went up by 7 points. For student learning outcomes, I really notice that students are motivated when they keep track of their progress. They get excited when they see growth. Students respond very well to routine and are excited to work with the teacher. 72% of my class showed growth on the MAP test. The learning outcomes for myself were definitely how important it is for students to interact on a one-on-one basis with the teacher routinely. They really value that time, and it helps establish a positive relationship. Differentiation is possible with each student, and each student really truly does learn at their own pace. I also really understand now how building the foundational reading skills is so critical to incorporating that balanced literacy. If you have any questions or comments, I will take them now. Thank you so much.